Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to Telematics Talks, the podcast where we explore the exciting world of GPS, telematics, technology, and fleet management, and discover the trends shaping today and tomorrow. I'm Oswaldo Flores. I'll be facilitating today's conversation with Julio Cesar Lopez, business development field expert at Navixy, and Javier Amozurrutia, founder of Mazmobi. We're very happy to be here and dive into this technology topic. Javier, you won the Select USA Schools contest, but let me ask you, Latin America faces unique mobility challenges, security, infrastructure, and regulatory complexity. Aren't you concerned about navigating all the regulations in the United States and Europe?
They're very different markets. I worked at a global leasing company, and whenever we talked about Latin America, the answer was, it already exists in Europe. Yes, but it's not adapted to Latin America's reality. Security is the first challenge. In Mexico, for example, if you hand over your car keys and the person takes the car, it's not theft. It's breach of trust. Recovering that vehicle can take years. You also can't park cars on the street with keys inside, as in Europe or the US. They'll simply be stolen. The second challenge is legislation, which makes operations more complex. Car-sharing models that work abroad often fail here. An Argentine company entered Mexico in 2023 with 50 vehicles and closed within a year due to security issues. Others in Chile and Argentina have shut down too. Each country requires a tailored approach because of different laws and security levels.
True. Thanks for that. Julio, you've spent about a decade in telematics and IoT, watching the industry evolve, from GPS and fleet intelligence to AI. What's the biggest thing fleet owners misunderstand about modern telematics? What it can really do for them, and what Navixy can deliver?
Thanks, Oswaldo. As Javier said, telematics has been around for years, but adoption and education remain the challenge. People had to learn what shared ownership really meant, like with early ride-hailing. When Uber and Didi launched, the platforms worked in the US and Europe, but in Latin America, most people didn't have credit cards. The solution? Cash payments. Suddenly, drivers also had to be cashiers. Telematics had similar limits at first. You only saw the car when it was in service. If the phone died, visibility was gone. Then lessors stepped in. Instead of selling cars, they rented them out for work. But they faced new questions. Where's my asset? How is it being driven? What does that check engine light actually mean? At first, telematics answered, where is the car? Now it goes further. Diagnostics, driver behavior, risk zones. It helps determine, is the error harmless or dangerous? Is this driver braking too hard, over-accelerating, or exposing the car to theft risk? And the real value is in what we do with that data. We can score drivers, reduce misuse, and even share insights with service providers. When brakes, batteries, or oil changes will be needed. That's telematics gold, actionable, real-time data. The biggest leap has been moving from isolated islands of information to real-time bridges. Now we can make predictive decisions, rebalance fleets, prevent misuse, and keep vehicles profitable.
Right. The key is data integration. Without it, information has little value because you can't see the whole ecosystem. Since Navixy works globally, how do the technical barriers in Latin America compare to those worldwide?
As Javier said, these aren't isolated issues. The main barrier in Latin America is market maturity. We bring experience from abroad, but must adapt to how ready people and industries are for these technologies. For instance, many companies now use pooled cars instead of assigning vehicles that sit idle. Telematics helps track usage, who, when, where, and why, so benefits can be measured like investments. Even car sharing is often chosen to save time in heavy traffic. The focus is efficiency. An idle vehicle is wasted money.
When we worked with telematics platforms, the GPS data always raised personal data concerns. Companies, especially international and European ones under GDPR, would say, if you install GPS, you'll know where employees live and park at night. That's unacceptable. The real shift came when we reframed it. We don't care where people are, we care how they drive. For last mile or transport vehicles, yes, location is important for safety. But for utility or company cars, from sales reps to executives, constant GPS wasn't the point. What we wanted were telematics devices reporting events, harsh braking, potential accidents, check engine alerts. GPS could be enabled only if the car was stolen. That helped ease privacy concerns. It's ironic. People worried about us knowing their location, while at the same time they were freely sharing it through Google Maps.
It's funny that people worry about location with enterprise telematics, yet happily overshare on social media. You're right, Javier. You're building a platform that integrates multiple fleet providers. Julio, in that context, where do you think the real power lies in the value chain?
The biggest issue we see right now with urban mobility and company fleets is driver behavior. Trucking companies are quite advanced here in Latin America. They're already using cameras. But where's most of the mobility? Not trucks, but cars. Trucks may be 20% of fleets, but 80% of the vehicles on the street are utility or private cars. And everywhere you look, a 5-passenger car usually carries just one person in the mornings. Many of them even work at the same company, yet they won't share a ride. Why should I? I don't like him. I don't even know him. But when it comes to social media, no one complains. With Waze, Google Maps, Facebook, people share their information daily. Phones listen to what we say and do, and nobody reads the fine print in the ads. They just grant access. Google provides tools to users, and in return it gathers massive traffic data. The other day someone asked me, how does this app know there's traffic here? I said, look around. What does every car have? A cell phone. The algorithm counts how many phones are in one spot, and based on that density, it marks the road yellow, red, or dark red to show heavy traffic. And users are giving away that data for free.
As Julio mentioned, there's far more data out there than we can consume. We share it in different ways, and what's really interesting is how mobility as a service options can integrate. There's car sharing, like what we do. A car that you use when you need it, then someone else uses it when they need it. But it's still a one-person use at a time. Then there's carpooling, where the idea is to share your car. If you're going from point A to point B, and someone else is too, you can ride together. Some platforms are even doing this at the company level, where employees can download an app and see who's driving in their area, then share rides instead of taking taxis or ride-hailing like Uber or Dai. Of course, with benefits for those who share. That's the classic carpooling concept, like the special lanes in U.S. highways where 4 people in a car could use the carpool lane. It started from there. Now, with technology, instead of asking neighbors, who's going to the city? You do it through an app. We even tried launching a prototype we called rent pooling. The idea was, when people travel for events, many are going to the same city for the same reason. For example, if I fly from Mexico City to Monterrey for an event, at least 3 people on my plane are also attending it. I've confirmed this myself. You arrive at the event and realize, hey, you were on my flight. One says, I took a taxi. Another, I rented a car. With rent pooling, the person renting a car could post, I'm renting, who else is going to this event? Others join, share the trip, and split the costs. In Monterrey, for example, the cheapest taxi from the airport is 700 pesos. Instead, you could pay 350 pesos to share a rented car. The renter reduces their cost and everything is managed through a platform. Then you start seeing the telematics side. How many people got in the car? The platform records it. 1 person rented it, but 2 more joined via rent pooling. That has an environmental impact too. Instead of 3 vehicles making the trip, just 1 did, reducing CO2 emissions. If 4 people share, the savings are even greater. And telematics shows even more. How the car was driven, if it was hybrid, how much CO2 could have been saved by driving correctly. braking properly, respecting speed limits. If they didn't, it shows lower savings. That's where gamification comes in, turning telematics data into measurable goals and rewards.
That's absolutely true. From the rental company's perspective, it might look like car sharing or pooling would hurt business. Fewer rentals, right? But in reality, it's the opposite. Picture this. You land at the airport, and half the people from your flight are headed to the same event. Suddenly, everyone rushes to rent a car, and the agency runs out. Because it's not just your flight, it's all the others too. Now imagine a platform like Javier's Mazmobi. As passengers deplane, it works almost like Waze. What event are you attending? Click. With that data, the system can see how many people are going to the same place and offer, instead of 10 cars, take 5 vans at a better price and split the cost. Everyone still gets where they need to go, and the rental company keeps cars available for other customers instead of running out of compacts while vans sit unused. It makes the fleet more efficient, and it connects perfectly with something Javier and I discussed years ago: gamification. Starbucks does it with stars. Earn 100, get a free coffee. But of course, by then you've already paid for several. The same principle works for rentals. Drive well, and your next booking gets 5% off. Booking.com uses it with hotels. Stay often, and you get discounts or room upgrades. It keeps people coming back. At the same time, telematics data is being collected, not just from cars, but from the entire trip ecosystem. Spare parts, fuel, hotels, even coffee shops. Say someone goes to a concert in a district full of hotels. You can sell that insight to hotels, so they launch targeted promos for those attendees. The guest gets a discount, the hotel fills more rooms, and the rental platform monetizes its telematics data.
Gamification is a big thing. Javier, let me ask you about crowdsourcing. That's clearly something you're building into the technology. I've had experience with some telematics companies I worked with in past years where, well, I wouldn't say we had problems, but there were definitely some obstacles when it came to using the information for safety and related issues. How have you handled that? How have you worked around all those safety and crowdsourcing concerns in order to build and complete your platform?
Well, one of the things we've done, especially regarding safety, is that we started strictly as a B2B company. We only work with businesses, and that has allowed us to grow without taking unnecessary risks. For example, yesterday I spoke with an insurance company. They asked about our safety record, and thanks to focusing on companies and their data, we've maintained the lowest incident rate in the market compared to any vehicle rental platform. This isn't just about training, it's also about sending consistent, non-intrusive messages to drivers. For instance, if I know users are driving in Mexico City, I'll notify them. Heavy rain expected this afternoon in the south. Drive carefully and watch out for potholes. This kind of constant, helpful communication has been key. Most issues aren't accidents, but damage from things like potholes, which can ruin tires, rims, or suspensions. Even if it's not our vehicle, users appreciate that Mazmobi is looking out for them. Businesses value this too. We're not just renting cars, we're helping keep their drivers informed and safer, which reduces risks for both their fleets and ours. The next step is improving our use of telematics. The more data we collect, the better insights we can provide. Ideally, we'd create a shared database across all mobility and telematics players. Each participant would contribute and, in return, gain access to richer information. By integrating with platforms like Google Maps and Waze, we could collectively generate traffic and safety insights. It's an ambitious goal, but if competitors collaborate, even while competing, we could all benefit from a shared data ecosystem that improves mobility and safety for everyone.
Yes, you're right, Javier. Julio, given the scale of technology that these fleets depend on, where do you think the real power lies in the value chain? How does all this data connect? And how can providers leverage the infrastructure to deliver real functionality?
As Javier mentioned, competitors used to avoid sharing data. But today, telematics providers must be agnostic. Systems have to interconnect. That's why we created IoT Logic, a tool that lets companies integrate systems without programming expertise. If we refuse to share data outside our own platforms, we only block innovation. Clients like Javier, who combine data from phones, GPS, and vehicles, need access because they're the ones turning data into value. When we partner with companies like Google, the combined insights, location, usage patterns, speed, schedules, become even more valuable. This connects directly to mobility as a service, MaaS. Cars are no longer just cars, they're computers on wheels. Connectivity and data are the real assets, enabling flexible mobility, switching vehicles on demand, scaling from 1 passenger to 5, all through an app. The real challenge is infrastructure. Providers like us must ensure systems are scalable, easy to use, and highly reliable. 99.9% uptime. That's why we partner with global players like Amazon and Google. The next evolution will come from AI, turning raw data into intuitive dashboards and insights. This is how telematics can truly unlock its value for companies.
Let me ask you about another topic, the data crisis. Fleet data is often trapped in silos. How can smart operators, companies like yours, help unlock that data and unleash its full potential?
I think the key is finding the right strategic partners. Data silos exist because people don't understand how to use the information. They think, I own the location data, it's mine, I won't share it. But that's an outdated and limiting view. When managed correctly, silos turn into a data lake. Instead of needing developers to separate and process everything, modern tools let you filter instantly. For one client, just provide usage times. For another, vehicle types and fuel sources. It's no longer about hoarding data, it's about opening the right taps and delivering exactly what each customer needs. Of course, this requires collaboration with companies like Javier's, who understand what the end customer really wants. Otherwise, it's like asking a lab to make medicine without describing the illness. The data is there, but without context or proper use, it's just inert and wasted.
When talking about data silos, it's important to look at how companies with massive data, like Google, manage it. Google doesn't care who the individual person is. What matters is the profile, gender, age range, city, interests, shopping habits, movement patterns. For example, in maps, they don't know who's in each car, only that a person with certain characteristics traveled from point A to point B. The real value isn't in having all the data, but in knowing what to ask from it. Many companies sit on huge databases but can't generate useful reports, often because they don't even know what to request. The same happens with AI tools. If you don't know how to prompt it, the answers won't be useful. So the biggest challenge with big data and silos isn't storage. It's asking the right questions to unlock real value.
That's the biggest challenge. Over the years in this industry, working with telematics and operators, I've seen the same problem Javier mentioned, knowing which data points to use to address issues of control or performance. Many operators get frustrated because they don't even know the right questions to ask. Without that, they can't extract the information they need to make better decisions and improve their operations.
Especially in transportation, the amount of data a truck generates is incredible, from tire pressure to tire temperature. At first, people may ask, why does that matter? But if used correctly, even small adjustments can have a big impact. For example, lowering tire pressure from 100 to 98 psi on a certain route, where heat affects the tires, can extend tire life and generate savings of around 2%. That may sound small, but when a single tire costs 20,000 pesos, it's a significant gain.
What Javier said is absolutely true. The real issue with data is knowing how to ask for the right report. Take tires, for example. One truck may not seem like much, but if you have 400 trucks with 18 tires each, even a small adjustment across the fleet can mean huge savings. If you go to finance and say, we reduced tire costs by 40% just by adjusting pressure, the numbers are staggering. By analyzing telematics, historical tire data, warning light activity and pressure trends. You can spot premature wear and prevent it. Again, it all comes down to the central point. The value isn't in the data itself, but in how you ask the right questions of the data. Most people don't know how to ask the right questions of data. It's like asking a child, "How was school?" They'll just say, "Fine." But if you ask, "How was your Spanish class yesterday? Was the homework exercise correct?" You'll get a specific, useful answer. The same applies in logistics, security, or car rentals. You must define exactly what you want to know: fuel savings, vehicle usage, accident locations, downtime, brand-specific maintenance costs, or transfer expenses. For example, instead of just tracking crashes, ask, "How many cars were relocated from north to south this weekend? And what did that cost?" Sometimes the insight is that it's cheaper to leave vehicles parked in one place than to move them. In the end, the value lies not just in having data, but in how you frame the question.
Recently, I visited a logistics company managing about 500 vehicles. They used 3 separate telematics platforms, one for GPS tracking, another for fuel monitoring, and a third for driver behavior. Their fleet manager spent 4 hours a day just consolidating all this information. This situation is surprisingly common. In your view, what is the operational cost of such fragmentation, of having to export and unify all this scattered data for fleet management?
This situation is very common, and the operational costs of fragmentation can reach 20 to 40%. Often companies use 3 separate devices, one for location, another for fuel, another for driver behavior, when a single platform could handle it all. Instead, fleet managers spend time and money juggling systems, which feels like wasted expense. The real problem is not the data itself, but how it's delivered. Giving a director a massive stack of reports is useless. They need a simple insight like, 80 trucks are causing the extra costs. That's actionable. When companies learn to use integrated platforms, those costs turn into savings and productivity gains. Lower maintenance expenses, fewer accidents, better trained drivers, and overall more profitable fleets.
Javier, regarding operators, many fleets face serious challenges with data ingestion and integration. Some operators report integration timelines of 6 months and development costs exceeding $50,000 just to connect their existing systems. Do you think, perhaps unknowingly, these operators are excluding the very fleets that need partnerships the most?
Yes, I've seen cases where integrations were projected at $50,000 or more, but often it doesn't need to be that way. Sometimes a simple web service exchanging just 3 or 4 key data points is enough to start. The problem is people try to build overly complex integrations from day one, and costs spiral. The smarter approach is step by step. Start small, validate the connection, prove the value, and then expand. What looked like a $50,000 project often ends up costing just a fraction, 20% or less, spread over time. That way, you begin using the data right away, see ROI faster, and avoid those scary upfront costs. As startups, we especially need to protect resources. If we're strategic and grow piece by piece, we can achieve powerful integrations without huge initial investments. When we talk about fleets with multiple providers, the key is to integrate gradually. Maybe I'm one of those 3 providers, so I start pulling data step by step. Instead of trying to solve everything at once, we focus on quick wins, reducing the fleet manager's daily reporting from 4 hours to 3.5, then to 2.5, and eventually down to just 15 minutes. This way, the client sees real results at every stage, builds trust in the process, and is willing to invest more to keep improving. It's all about showing progress and value incrementally, not demanding a huge investment up front.
In conclusion, data fragmentation is not inevitable. It's a choice. The most successful MaaS partnerships are built on open data architectures from day one. In fact, fleets could start tomorrow by auditing their data export capabilities. Within 24 hours, they could have their core operational data in standard formats, ready to participate in MaaS partnerships.
I think what's left now is to wrap up with Javier and thank him for joining this podcast. These are subjects we could talk about for hours, and there would still be more to explore. Most importantly, I want to thank Javier for allowing us to invite him. Hopefully, this won't be the first or last time we have him here. I'd love to dive deeper into his platform in the future. Today we focused a lot on the car sharing and leasing industry, but hearing Javier's perspective as a founder was truly valuable. Even though he calls his company a startup, I see him as an entrepreneur who's been knocking on doors with major players like Google and other large US companies. What Mazmobi is doing is fascinating and disruptive. It shows where the industry is headed. The vision Javier shared today, like observing from a taxi how many people drive alone in their cars, really highlights the challenges and opportunities ahead. That's the inflection point where technology comes in, and companies like Navixy, together with innovators like Javier, will drive this transformation into platforms that deliver value directly to end users.
I just want to thank you for your time. As I said, I hope this isn't the first and last conversation we have. Mobility is a topic I'm passionate about, and our vision goes beyond cars. It includes motorcycles, trucks, and any asset that can be optimized. The goal is to build a mobility as a service model that connects with other platforms, even public transportation, so that people can move across a city or even across the country using a single app. Ultimately, it's about efficient mobility with a positive environmental impact.
Those are the kinds of ideas that will change the world, Javier. Truly.